Welcome into the live stream today. We're going to be breaking down Elizabeth Warren's letter over to Chair Powell and their plea, I think, to take a look at a rate cut. We'll break it down and give you guys a little bit of insights as to why the market is in the shape it's in right now, which is a little bit of struggle on Bitcoin. My name is Paul Bear. Welcome back into Tech Path. All right, a couple of things we'll go to today. We'll cover Bitcoin, get into a handful of tokens, a little bit on ETH, also have a couple of clips for you as well. We're also going to be announcing a big airdrop we're doing here on the Diamond Circle today, so stick around for that. I do want to thank our sponsor, and that is iTrust Capital. If you guys are looking at long-term holding and you want to do it in a IRA, of course, the best way to do that is over at iTrust. And you can do things like hold Bitcoin, Ethereum. You can also do gold and silver, as well as a slew of altcoins. All of that's available over at iTrust Capital. Just visit their website, itrustcapital.com. Use our link. It's going to give you a $100 funding reward. Lots of people use this today. I think they have over 200,000 accounts right now. So definitely one of the top IRAs out there for crypto. Let's get into our first clip today. And the first clip is going to give you an outline of what could happen tomorrow at the FOMC. Take a look.
All right, the Fed is set to kick off its two-day policy meeting today, and the markets are also anticipating that big CPI inflation report that we're going to get this week. You are still of the expectation that we could potentially get two cuts this year, right?
I think I would say we're in the slim majority from Steve's report. We're looking for one cut in September and then another one in December.
So tight is a term of art within economists. So
we've been in a period for a while with inflation data sort of going sideways, and therefore somewhat ambiguous.
But I actually think it's going to be more than. I believe that, yes, in the months of October, November, December.
And really what everybody is going to be looking at is the messaging that's coming out and the summary of economic projections.
Remaining patient and continuing to look for validation that the true path is disinflation.
Apple actually down 2%, Nvidia up 0.75% following the split. We hit records. Can tech keep us going?
That as long as the CPI remains, kind of at where it's been about 3.4%, that should be enough to keep the momentum in the market going.
You say restrictive. I want the monetary policy of the U.S. to enable growth.
And what are you telling investors to do at this point?
We think you should be fully invested, but at the same time, we should be careful as we lead into the fall, as we lead to more geopolitical risk, and as we lead into the election in November.
So this is likely to be, on balance, a sort of boring meeting.
Boring, except for there are so many other things that are happening.
All right, so as you can see there, it is all over the place in terms of the anticipation for tomorrow. Maybe that means, though, that the markets are heating up in terms of where a cut could come into play. Still a lot of people kind of pointing to that. A couple other things that are happening, of course, tomorrow, which, by the way, we will be airing that as a live stream. So make sure, if you're not subscribed to the channel, do that right now. Just take a little time, hit that bell. You'll get a notification when we do that live stream tomorrow. I think we're going to probably come on around 2 o'clock, 2:15, and we'll live stream through Chair Powell's address to the press corps, which usually where we get a little bit of feedback from him and what we can kind of read within the tea leaves of his attitude toward whether it's cuts, rate, what we could see as a possible rate hike. Who knows what's going to happen on this, but it's a big day. Also, the CPI releases same day, so that'll come out in the morning. Expectations right now on the CPI are 3.4, so same as around the April print. If that comes in hotter, this could get nasty. So we'll take a look at all that for you guys tomorrow. We're going to break it down for sure. A couple other things to compare, though, is here's a list of the countries and central banks that have already cut just recently, but have pretty much cut. So you got Switzerland, Brazil. You can kind of see it if you're listening to the podcast. There's Chile, Colombia, Mexico, Czech Republic, Hungary, quite a few. And then Europe, which is the big one. When you get the ECB starting to cut, that starts to really align with what I think will be an overall position. Can the United States hold this position right now? There's a lot of pressure on the Fed right now to get this 2% under control. I think we've got a political landscape scenario playing out as well as a macro landscape, which is in some cases a little bit dangerous. Here's one headline right here. U.S. Democratic senators sent a letter. This, of course, was the headline today. This is talking about a letter to Jerome Powell, and guess who it was? It was Senator Elizabeth Warren, Jackie Rosen, and John Hickenlooper, all coming in and saying, hey, we write today to have and urge the Fed to lower the federal funds rate from a 2-decade high of 5.5. Prolonged period of high interest rates already slowed down the economy, failed to address the remaining key drivers of inflation. Letter comes as financial markets, reacting surprisingly resilient labor market, have moved expectations for an interest rate cut to September, previously anticipated for July. Remember when we were talking back at the beginning of the year and everybody was looking at multi-cuts? And of course, that was backtracked quite a bit in January and February when we saw a little bit more bullish or bearish positioning by the Fed. And now we're kind of in that situation right now. I think a lot of people are looking at Q4. ECB, Bank of Canada, both those G7s, recently cut interest rates, departing from the Fed's current stance and maintaining higher interest. Remember, there's a lot of these things when you look at some of the macro from a geopolitical standpoint that is in disarray. Many of these countries are in turmoil. They're in a position right now, not that we aren't, but when you look at some of these countries where they do have severe pressure on jobs, they have severe pressure on rising inflation that they're trying to kind of bring down, but at the same time, trying to inject, potential, economic structure into the economy itself. So there's a lot of problems, I think, that play into this. Fed's kind of sitting in a good spot right now when you think about it versus everybody else. You want to be the last one to play that hand. I think that's what Powell is doing. So high interest rates are taking their toll. This is on corporations. This is where it gets a little bit dicey. January, 264 companies repeated a default for at least their second time. 35% of corporate defaults in 2023 were repeat default. These are basically companies that can't make their payments, usually to their open line of credit or to major credit positions they have for everything from fixtures and systems and operational costs, all those kind of things. So that's a big problem here. As interest rates remain higher for longer, corporate default rate is now rising. And this gets to be problematic because it's not something that will retain jobs. And that's the other factor that plays into this going forward as we see more job data start to work its way through the summer. The other thing that kind of exacerbates the whole situation is what's happening with BRICS. Here, of course, was a headline. BRICS makes a major de-dollarization announcement. And what was it? Well, what they're trying to do is essentially drop in a new payment system. And it has been confirmed that they are building one. So it's going to become a competitor for the current global reserve, US dollar. A couple of points within this that they kind of hit on was that not only are they looking at the new payment system, they're also seeing a large amount of new emerging countries starting to apply to be part of the BRICS. So remember, all it takes is a little thing before, it's very slow and then all at once. Those are the things you kind of have to watch for around de-dollarization, especially in the GDPs as we start to grow, because some of these countries are significant in size. The other thing you have to look at is where is Bitcoin right now? Because everybody's been saying, well, the big factor here is the amount of inflow into the ETFs should be driving the price of Bitcoin. You would think, right? A couple of points to that. We'll talk about sentiment here in a second. I'll show you a chart. But Bitcoin price risks around a 60K dive as Bitcoin bid liquidity thins on a new 3% dip. That's where we are right now. And we're trading at under 68 this morning during the Asia trading session. There was a little bit of further Bitcoin price losses looked at here overall. There's a couple of points, and there are some key points that I'm looking at in terms of where we might see an adjustment. But it is meeting a little bit of a heavy bid support. We have some laddered in bid support here, but not a heavy concentration of it. It's really not even heavy down to 60 if he can be completely honest, this being one of the traders that are out there watching this. So I'd love to get your feedback. And, when you look at Bitcoin in its position right now, because this does affect altcoins, and it's going to have an effect to a certain extent, maybe even some of the stock positions, which we're continuing to see. Because remember, money moves from one win to another to try to be able to ladder in on potential gains. And that typically happens from the S&P 500 as gains start coming. Remember, we've hit all-time highs, I think, 26 times this year. So could we continue to see that kind of move? This particular trader says move isn't over. In fact, I think these killer whale games will continue through Jay Powell's comments on Wednesday and the economic reports on Thursday, because there's some key economic reports coming in on Thursday. So all of this playing out. Very cautious, I think, right now in terms of trade, unless you're doing, short-term trades, whether you're shorting something or longing something. Not that we give financial advice, but I'm in a position where you look at the macro pressure quite a bit here. Another tweet right here. This was Powell's press conference. They've been pretty good for the market, recently. If you look at some of the ones in the past 4 FOMCs, let me kind of zoom in on them a little bit, have all coincided with local bottoms. Remember, that's where we are right now. So around a 20% rally for Bitcoin. So with the next presser, taking this, of course, is going to come out really on Wednesday, Thursday, we could see a bounce closer to what most people think, which could mean we could see a jump up to around 80 is kind of what they're zooming in on, that zone right here, around that 19% gain. If that takes us up to 80, that would be clear sailing for Bitcoin, because we are definitely in open water at that time, which is price discovery time. If you look at some of the traction right now, sentiment still trending down. Looks like we could see, I'm calling for around 64 as a potential target before we see a lift. That, of course, I think still depends on whether or not we get huge impacts from FOMC tomorrow. And whether that is, what I'm watching for is this. If we get a little bit of softness with the Fed, in the sense to where they even allude to a rate cut. Because remember, their position has been no rate cuts, holding, we're in position, we think we've got it under control. They're talking about inflation. But if we allude to a rate cut, that's probably as good as a rate cut, because that means there will get some priced in market movement into the fall. And then if we actually get the rate cut, I think that's when you have to start watching the markets at that time in a very quick way. One thing to be aware, guys, we're doing an Airdrop summer. We've got a whole program out there for all of our Diamond Circle members. If you are in our email list, you're going to get an update on this. The way it works, just go over and visit to our website, paulbaronnetwork.com. We're dropping, right now, the bounty is up to around $25,000 in token rewards. These will all be dropped into different tiers. We have our founder tier, our HODL tier, and our Diamond Circle tier, which is our free tier. So you guys can participate in it. And check it out. If you're a member of one of our services now, you're already part of this. All you have to do is plug in your wallets. Go check that out. You guys can learn a lot there. All right, I want to go to a couple of clips here by Anthony Scaramucci. And the first one is going to get on the political standpoint, because this will get into pro-crypto, anti-crypto candidates. Take a look.
In quick summary, I'm for Biden because I dislike Trump. I don't want Trump to degrade the system or lead us into chaos as a country. I disagree with Biden on a lot of things. Right now, if you're a single issue voter, you're voting for Donald Trump. He is pro-crypto. The administration is anti-crypto. However, you and I noticed in the middle of May, it looked like the ETF for Ethereum was going nowhere. And then miraculously, they made a decision to approve those ETFs. Okay, now he said he was going to veto that bill, and so I think he was forced into it. But if you see a sea change in Joe Biden, and again, we just saw a sea change. Politicians are capricious, we know this, and they're weather vanes. Trump is now spinning towards crypto. If Biden spins towards crypto, the industry is won.
All right, and what Scaramucci is talking about there, this is ironic that this is happening at this time, because we have a political tracker on just general sentiment. And here are the 3 candidates, Trump, Biden, Kennedy. And if you look at Biden, he has actually started to accelerate on sentiment for pro-crypto voters. Trump is kind of flatlined up here at the top. Sure, he is leading the way. And Kennedy has declined slightly. So Biden, very interesting that Scaramucci said that because of the ETH ETF. Was there something that maybe repositioned crypto voters, if you're a single issue voter, that are maybe leaning into Biden right now? I don't know, but the fact that we have Biden moving up now in the polls in terms of sentiment around crypto topics and crypto positions, that's a big deal. I want to go to this next clip. This next one will get in on his thoughts on the ETH ETF, because this is a big deal in terms of the timing. Take a look.
You know who has the money. The baby boomers have the money. And what are the baby boomers like? Well, they like ETFs. They like CUSIP numbers. Baby boomers don't want to be bothered with, hello, Coinbase, give me a wallet. I'd like to buy Bitcoin from you and put it in my wallet on Coinbase. They like the fact that they can put Bitcoin now on their brokerage statement using the CUSIP of BlackRock or Fidelity, or you pick the brand. And so I think it's usually positive for Ethereum. Well, full disclosure, I own Solana, I own Ethereum, I own Avalanche, I own PYR, Vulcan Forge, the gaming token. Obviously, I own a position in Algorand. But I would say as it relates to Ethereum, it's a blockbuster seismic thing for Ethereum. So Ethereum, again, use the same logic. There's a Wall Streeter that's going to call you and say, you need a 2% allocation in Bitcoin, a 1% allocation in Ethereum. It may switch. You need a 2% allocation in Ethereum, a 1% allocation in Bitcoin. And you've now made these things very accessible. Those are my top ones. I bought into a smaller one called Parcel. And so the symbol is PARCL. It's a Solana-based layer 2, but it is a token. And they are a real-world asset token. And they are basically giving you the opportunity to go long or short macro real estate markets. So,
you know, we've looked at the real estate markets. There's a couple of points I want to kind of analyze there on what Scaramucci was talking about. First is the expectation of gains by boomers. And what he's talking about is these safe zones, such as ETFs. Now, granted, the Bitcoin ETF is somewhat of a slam dunk for a boomer because they don't have to think about it. It's just, you know, Bitcoin goes up, you make money. But when you get into Ethereum, there are some alternatives there because of the potential for rewards. As we all know, when you look at the comparison of rewards in the ETH ecosystem versus in an ETF, which, you know, those are not going to be paid. Think of that like a dividend. So the question will be this, will boomers care about that other than just exposure? Because I think the key here is the juice worth the squeeze scenario for boomers? Do they really want to go to it? I think Scaramucci hit it, do they really want to go launch a Coinbase account, get a wallet, you know, do all those kind of things versus just going into some branded ETF that they can get exposure on? I think that's what you're weighing out. I don't know that we're going to see. Now, there will be some people on the fence. Don't get me wrong. There's a lot of people that would be a little bit younger and maybe even some Gen X and boomers that are a little bit more aggressive that would fully go into ETH and go out there and stake it, get those rewards, and do those kind of things because it's fully available to them and it's the same kind of exposure. It's a really interesting topic right now. ETH presents a unique position. We're going to find out soon enough. I think all of this is happening. So Ethereum ETF issuers still waiting for SEC comments on their S1 filings. This is kind of a slow walk too. Right now you've got the SEC holding down. Remember, the filings were submitted on May 31st, expected that week, and then the S1 forms requiring detailed business and security information. This is kind of that final step, or the second step for the 19B4's approvals, which is on May 23rd. That was when that all occurred. So you think about that and then look at these things. We're expecting comments to be sent back from the regulator June 7th. That happened this week. So after conversation with the regulator, at least 2 have not received comments back. So that could be just a slow response. But still, the ETF issuers are seemingly optimistic. So one source saying that the S1's likely to have 2 more rounds of draft filings before they will be finally approved. So we still got a little bit of movement. Could this happen by end of June? That probably could be the target here. It'll be interesting to see where ETH is at that time. Let's go over to the chart. I want to just kind of see where ETH is right now. Yeah, by end of June, you know, if you start to push that out, it could start recovering. I mean, we're still in our sentiment zone down, even though it's about 3,400 is where we think it's going to go. A lot of things happening right now, that's for sure. All right, just in also, remember, ICBC says Ethereum is providing technical power for the digital future and its digital oil. There's a lot of mainstream finance now that is looking at Ethereum in a different way. And I think you'll see more of this starting to pile up, and we'll get, you know, because remember, a lot of these investors are fairly sophisticated. There are ones that are lazy, and yes, they go the easy route. But there's going to be some of these that are fairly sophisticated that start to really leverage into these systems. And those are the ones we've got to watch very closely. Other things to kind of watch here is MiCA could also propel some potentials around stablecoins. So these are euro-backed stablecoins in the Eurozone that they're talking about. So Binance announced restrictions on stablecoins that fall short of the new MiCA standards, but Kraken is going the other route. So they're assessing its stablecoin offerings to ensure compliance with the EU's criteria. So that's a big deal. The uptick indicates a growing demand within European markets, notably the combined weekly volume of prominent euro stablecoins. So that's Tethers, remember, EURT. And then you also look at this right here. US-backed stablecoins remain the market's giants, but there's still another 270 billion in average weekly volume in 2024 by euro-backed stablecoins. So that's a 1.1% transactions share, not massive, but significant in terms of a rise from almost nothing in 2020. So still very positive. What this does mean is it probably is going to position this right here. USDT is going to remain a bit of a virtual asset pin to be watching for European traders. So that could be pretty good. Make sure and drop some comments over and some questions. We'll try to get to some of those. I see quite a few coming in today. I'll try to get to as many as I can. And I know we have a poll up here today too. But before we get to that, I want to go to the topics for XRP because their big event is happening right now. And Ripple is really kind of looking at this whole idea around custody acquisition. They've got a new senior VP coming in on stablecoins. That's a big sign for Ripple, I think, in general. A couple of points that I want to highlight right here. The acquisition received necessary regulatory approvals, is now complete, so that's in. Also, the closing of this acquisition adds limited purpose trust company, regulated by, guess who? These guys are actually, I think, in reality, as long as you're in compliance, they have no problem going. But anyway, this is getting into the New York Department of Financial Services. Further into this, it's going to allow for better institutional capital or customer service to tokenize, store, move, and exchange value, simply meaning XRP Ripple is going to have a USD-backed stablecoin, and it's going to have some potential here for growing pretty quickly. A lot of things happening with XRP, even though Root was down heavily today, like most of the targets for sure. XRP gains 100,000 holders in June. What does that mean? That's a lot of new wallet holders, you know, when you look at it. And I think in general for XRP, there's a lot of potential here. The stablecoin component, I think their entry into gaming and their entry into what may end up being a very unique Web3 play. If you haven't seen our Futureverse video, go back and watch that because we had Aaron McDonald on. It was a very interesting conversation around this topic because there were some things that he said that I think if you read between the lines, you kind of get what's happening. Oh yeah, what do we have left? One more thing. Oh, guess what? Tucker, now pro-crypto, and he wants Bitcoin. So he's selecting Swan as the lead sponsor of a national tour around Bitcoin. So that's intriguing because whether you like Tucker or not, this is going to open it up to a lot of people that watch Tucker Carlson. And this might be the thing that starts to move it because this is one of the few people in terms of influencers that are out there, especially on the political front. And when you think about his kind of his genre of freedom, you know, especially the way that, I mean, because he's had some crazy interviews, but including Vladimir Putin. But the point is that if he starts to break through that, you may see a pretty significant uptick in Bitcoin. I hope he gets some self-custody in there as opposed to going with any kind of exchanges. But hey, we'll see how it goes. Let's go over to the poll real quick and take a look. What do you guys have? All right, looks like what happens for Bitcoin is going to go to 70K right here before we go to 60. I'm in agreement with you on that because right now my target is still around that 64 zone if we see that dip, but the highest position could be around 69. So that's kind of right in my zone right now of looking at some of our MSI data for going forward. Let's take a look at some questions. Daddy Chill, yeah, well, you're going to have a lot of people asking that very question, I think, when they're watching Tucker Carlson. Crypto Carlson. That's what I'm going to call him. Crypto Carlson. Sol, next ETF. Don't rule out XRP. But Solana, yes, there has been rumors. Yes, Solana has been rumored to potentially being looked at. Apple using XRP to tap to pay. Don't get me on Apple. That tap to pay, really? You guys are much better than that. Do you think altcoin season will come during the summer or perhaps winter? I think it's a little later. Really on this cycle, I think it all depends on how the macroeconomic pushes into the traditional S&P, because that's where the adjustment starts to play into it. If you're not part of our Diamond Circle, guys, you got to get in on that, because that's literally that's where I'll go out and drop in additional analysis, and I only put it in our Diamond Circle. So Corey Clipstein, oh, I'm not going to say that. Thank you for that, people. We don't like to put any bad words to any bad, just, let's play fair. Ticker is Tooker. Yeah, what is going on with the crypto pit today? What is this? You guys are sending me interesting questions. I'm going to start picking different ones, I think. If Trump wins in November, expect a $10,000 Bitcoin candle. That could be for sure. I think the situation in terms of the political landscape will be huge. And yes, crypto will win if Trump wins. The way it's looking, though, if Biden continues to maybe perch up and he comes to, remember, he started to reposition a lot now. And he's repositioning on immigration a bit. He's repositioning on some pretty big points. If he repositions on blockchain, watch that one. We'll see. Scaramucci and O'Leary will get you wrecked. 6 ways to say. I'm not saying that about Scaramucci because we want him to come on the show and we want to do an interview with him. 50K Bitcoin means 300 billion of outflows. That would be unrealistic. I would agree with that. Super chat. Hey, thanks a lot, man. Warren is desperate for rate cuts. She loses control of the Biden admin in November. I don't know a rate cut would be beneficial to the Biden camp. There is no doubt. That is probably the bigger, scenario that's behind this. Some people might say, well, it's tech. We'll probably see adjustments, or they know that the end is near on the S&P 500 run that we've seen, and we need that last little hurrah, and a rate cut would do that for sure. Xober says as low as 48K. Xober, I would love to hear your analysis on a $48,000 Bitcoin. That would be a significant drop. What would that drop us down to? Let me zip. Can we even zip that down? Let me pull in a little bit here and see what that would be from where it is right now. Coming in on that trade, what would that drop me down to? 48K. Woo! Almost a 30% drop. You must have something that I'm not watching, that's for sure. Ripple final judgment send the market in the coming months, especially if Bitcoin has already started moving back up. Could be, I think Ripple is one of those that is just coiling up for some potential growth. Nobody crosses Senator Warren. What do you mean by that, Joe? Nobody crosses Senator Warren. I'm not sure what he means by that. I'm confused why Elizabeth Warren is asking for cuts. Well, I think this is a political card. If she gets a cut, or if she potentially shows that she's asking for cuts. Remember, she still has to win a race. She's competing against John Deaton, for the senator position there in her district. So that could still be the case. Remember, a lot of businesses are facing some pretty tough times right now, and rate cuts would help those businesses. Many banks don't necessarily like this or paying out, large amounts. And I think when you look at the economic position overall of the country, it's not necessarily great for the Biden administration. So you need that as well. So big one. Crypto gaming about to blow up, but when? I think gaming is still the winning horse here going into this final layer of bull run. We are not there yet, but there are going to be some interesting releases. And I think we've dropped a lot of videos here recently over the last couple of weeks on moves by Meta, by Microsoft. Watch those very closely because there are some very unique things happening there that could really transition Web 2 to Web 3 very quickly. So, Paul, what do you think happens with GME in the coming week? This is such a weird thing. One day they're going to be studying this. the meme side of investing is fanatical. I mean, when you look at the amount of people that watched the Gill stream, Roaring Kitty, 600,000 people. That is significant, and it's got to have impact on markets. I just can't imagine that it wouldn't. So I think it's really about how well the current market is fighting against that. That's the bigger factor. Are we buying into this dip or wait? I don't give financial advice. I can tell you that I nibble on all dips just because that's what I do. It's a great place to grab dollar cost averaging if you're trying to do things. You buy on these kind of days. If you are a convicted, investor, and you are in all the way, and you believe in everything that you've done, whether it's, altcoins or Bitcoin or Ethereum, whichever route takes, because every portfolio is quite different from what I have found out there. All right, you guys, if you're not, as I said, if you're not in our Diamond Circle, get in now because you've got to get part of that airdrop summer. All you have to do is drop a couple of wallet addresses, your Solana wallet and your Base wallet. That's where those airdrops are going to be going to. We've got our first dispersion coming out very soon. We'll announce that in our Diamond Circle email of when that will be happening, because we'll take our snapshot of the wallets that are in there, and those will be eligible for those airdrops. So check it out. If you're not following me on X, make sure and do that, @Paul Barron. We'll catch you next time right here on TechPath.